So just a block for this evening's class. And as ever, we always say, take these classes at your own pace. So if there's any pains you need to move away from, please do. And if you find yourself gritting your teeth or holding your breath, evaluate how you can move around in the pose and adapt it to your needs a little bit more so that you can actually breathe and still work, but not be at that point where you're overstraining. Just sitting here, having a little wriggle through. Basically, I've been sitting down for a couple of hours, so this is an opportunity to kind of stretch the spine out and the shoulders, get into the neck, etc., and open the hips out a little bit and see how the body feels. A little time to kind of interview yourself on the inside, see how you feel. And we'll just allow ourselves to interlace the hands. So I'm going to bring the forearms together, elbows in towards the ribs a little bit, and begin to take some wrist rolls. And then see if we can roll the opposite way around, which takes a serious amount of brain power, much more than it should do, but it is Friday evening. And then we'll continue to warm up the wrists and the forearms a little bit. I'm going to tilt the hands out gently to the side and flick through the fingers, including drawing the thumb in as well. So making a fist and letting it go as quickly as you can. It doesn't take very long before your forearms start to bind up, which is pumping the blood through, warming them up a little bit. You find your fingers start to get stiff quite quickly as you do this. And sometimes in yoga, we do something for 30 seconds and it feels very quick, and other times not so. This might be one of those. And then we'll shake those out. I'm going to take the hands forwards now, just leaning in a little bit to a cat's paws. So you can rock from side to side through the wrists a little bit and press that knuckle on the index finger down into the floor. And then for fun, we'll turn the fingers out sideways so the thumbs are now forwards. I'm actually going to continue to rock a little bit from side to side. So I'm kind of pouring with the hands. And by that I mean I'm starting to take the pressure out of the heel of the hand whilst keeping the fingers flat to the ground. So feeling the stretch through the palm of the hand. And I'll allow myself to turn the hands all the way around. So now leaning forwards a little more for me. Thumbs outside, fingers towards. Now, if you're only able to bring the hands directly underneath your shoulders, that's fine. You might need to measure how much of stretch you get in there, because we've all got different levels of mobility in the wrist joints themselves. They're different sizes in different bodies. As long as you can feel a nice stretch down the forearms, which might be a bit prickly if you haven't stretched your arms in that way for a while. Now I'm going to take the breath in on the exhale, draw the belly in and allow myself to kind of lift up. So I can just shake out the wrists very gently. And then bring the fingertips onto the collarbones, elbows together. So I'm starting to flex the upper back. Inhale the elbows out wide and start to take the spine into a little bit of extension, even letting the chin drop away from the chest of the fraction. So making these nice big angel wings movements, trying to keep the legs relaxed and down. Just rocking around a little bit on the pelvis. Using some abdominal strength to hold my position. And I'll take a couple of rounds in the opposite way. And release. I'm going to allow myself to come onto all fours and just move the block out towards the front of the mat. Getting just a little pour through the hands. And then I'm going to allow myself to lift into down dog. I'm not going to stay in down dog. I'm just going to allow myself to walk the feet out a little bit and then come into a plank. You take a breath in, keeping the hips high. Come into half plank, elbows into the ribs, press back into plank, then lift up into the down dog. I'll come forwards, push through, and allow myself to lift up. Now you don't need to bring your shoulders all the way down to the height of your elbows. You're just leaning forwards, allowing the ribs and the elbows to meet and then pressing back. If you come down too deep, it's a very big strain on the front of the shoulders and can start to sort of introduce rotator cuff injury. So we want to just allow this to build a little strength and warm up, pressing back. And we'll come in for a last time. Push forwards, press back, and then allow ourselves to lift. I'm going to scissor the right leg to the sky, keeping the hips square to the ground, pointing the toes out, very straight legged. So a much bigger stretch into the leg that is now standing on the floor. Feeling that particularly through the foot, the back of the heel, into the calf muscles, as well as the hip joint on that side. We'll bring that foot to the floor and scissor the opposite leg up. Trying to keep the weight as even as possible through the two shoulders. So definitely pressing the hands into the ground, pushing back a little bit, belly drawn in. Last breath. Easing the foot down to the floor. I'm going to walk the hands in towards the toes. Into a forward bend now. As this is the evening and I've done classes earlier before, my legs are relatively straight, but you'll notice that there is still a bit of a bend in them. I'm able to press the feet into the floor and lift the hips high as I let the body drop over the hips, and I keep the fingertips deliberately on the ground. If you're very stiff and you haven't stretched out today before, you might find that your knee bend is needing to be a lot more. We're trying to load into the hamstrings whilst looking after those lower back muscles. So if your hands are on the floor, then you're not going to be able to support your spine. Whereas this way you can control how much weight you take rather than using everything. Now then from there, we'll just bring the hands onto the shins and lift up halfway. Draw the chest forwards, legs open out a little straighter. We'll exhale our way down into that fold. We'll bring the hands onto the shins and exhale down and onto the shins and exhale down. Bring the hands onto the hips, soften the knees a little, allow ourselves to lift up. I'm going to take the feet a little wider than the shoulders and the hips. Draw the arms out wide. Bring the hands in towards the heart. Toes are slightly turned in. I'm going to exhale forwards and allow the hands to come to the floor. Then I'm going to lean back a little bit, take the toes away from the ground, spin the toes out to the side as I bring the feet flat to the floor, and sink the bottom down into a squat. Now, I just want to bring my bottom down as low as my knees so that my body is in between the space where my thighs are separated. And at the moment, my body is parallel to the ground. I'm going to take another breath in and then exhale, let the spine hang down and the head drop. I'll take one more breath there and then gorilla roll out, just drawing away from the floor slowly. So I feel every fiber of the legs working. And then as I start to take the arms out wide, I'm going to turn the toes back in again. Hands up above the head, hands into the heart. Allow myself to exhale down to the floor. Make any adjustments you need to. Lean back a little bit, take the toes away from the ground. They spin out, we squat down, take a breath. Hold it down, low as you can go. And use your next exhale to drive out through the legs. So we'll do one more of those. The key points are turning the toes in a little bit. Hands into the heart. And exhaling down. Lean back, toes wide, and then you can sit. And always use the exhale to lift. To draw yourself back up. We'll zigzag the toes back in, more into hip distance apart. Let the hands come in towards the heart. Exhale down to the floor. I'm just going to walk the hands in towards the front of the mat, so more into down dog. Then walk the feet to about the halfway point down my mat. Bring the toes together. I'm going to ease my way back with fingers towards toes. So now just in the middle of the mat. Bring hands onto the hips and allow myself to lift up slowly. I'll take a little breath from there. Load the weight into the right leg. And allow the left knee to lift. Let's see if I can take the hands around the shin. Finding my drifting point to work with. And normally that would be out in front in the distance somewhere. But my wall is very neutral. And I find I sort of move into a blind man's buff where I can't actually work out where the wall is. Kind of goes snowy white for me. So I'm looking more towards the floor where the wall joins. So ideally, chin a little bit more lifted than I have. As upright as you can, just drawing the shoulders back, pressing the standing foot into the floor. Last breath in, we'll bring that foot to the ground, shake out the leg and the ankle, surprising how quickly I start to stiffen up. Feet back together again, we'll just poise ourselves. Take a moment, shift the weight. Allow the opposite leg to come up. Again, just easing the hands around the shin, shoulders back. So lifting the knee towards the body. And then we'll let our foot come to the floor as well. Keeping the feet together, hands into the heart. We're going to bend the knees. So the toes are touching, the ankles are slightly apart, the knees are pressing in into our chair pose. And slowly extend the hands out so they're following more or less the line of the body, more of a Y shape, and following the line of the mat. I'm going to shift the weight gently into left leg, slide the right leg forward so the foot is just off the floor. It's now a one-legged chair pose, thighs pressing together. And then carefully bringing the foot back, trying to stay in position, but changing the weight into the opposite leg. And with the knees still pinned together, easing the left foot forwards. I'll bring that foot back in, hands into the heart. I'm going to let the legs open out as they fold forwards and down to the floor. I'm going to walk the fingers into the front end of the mat and step myself back into down dog. From here, moving forwards into a plank, pushing forwards into half plank. This time I'm going to take up dog. So strong legs, rolling the shoulders back, keeping the belly drawn in, using that to lift ourselves into the down dog. And to walk the feet halfway up the mat. Toes together again, walk the hands in gently. Bring hands onto the hips. A nice easy lift. Hands in towards the heart. Knees over toes, we'll come into chair pose again. This time we're going to take the revolve version. We'll take a breath. Right elbow across to the left side. Allow yourself to open the arms out wide, looking to the side edge of the mat. Counterlevering the arms against the legs to help with rotation. Last breath in. Bring hands together. Rotate over to the opposite side. Trying to keep the knees together and aligned. We can open up to the second side. And bring hands back in. Holding forwards down to the ground. Walk the hands into the front of the mat. Feet back into down dog. Take a breath in. Use the exhale to come into plank, to half plank, to up dog. Lifting into a down dog. Now take a little breath from there. Come forwards into plank. And this time we'll bring the knees down underneath the hips, so we're in tabletop position, just a little lifted actively from the floor. Going to tuck the toes of the left foot underneath and slide the foot back. Going to allow myself to press into the right shin as I lift the leg up, trying to keep the belly drawn in. Going to allow myself to bend the knee. And on the exhale, let's see if I can press the foot a little higher towards the sky. Bring it back to where I thought I started. Allow myself to press again, keeping the belly drawn in. So I'm being conscious not to allow the spine to curve as I press up. But feeling this in the hamstring and the glutes. Pressing up. And one last time. So it doesn't really matter if you're getting an inch, 3 inches, or half an inch of movement in the leg, just as long as you can feel it working. We'll bring that knee down to the ground. Change it over to the opposite side. So trying to keep the heart, belly button, kidney bone on the center line, pressing into the shin so those hips can stay stable. Pressing away from the floor, we'll put the bend into the knee. Take a breath in and use the exhale to lift. Bring it back. Lift on the exhale. Inhale. Exhale again. Pressing into the shin can help. And last time. And bring the knee down to the ground. We'll tuck the toes on the opposite, so the left foot goes back. And we'll allow ourselves to lift the leg again to about the height of the hip. Now this time we're going to turn the hips out towards the side and allow myself to bend the knee. So bringing the thigh sort of 90 degrees out to the side. And then same thing with shin. So the shin's following the line of the mat. Thigh is pointing out 90 degrees. Let's see if I can just lift that knee a little further away from the ground without compromising leaning into the right side, and then draw that back down without actually touching the floor. Draw it all the way back up again. Take it that little bit further. So get to a point where the hips kind of stop, or the pelvis stops moving around, and you can really work into the sort of outer edge of that hip joint. And opening the groin. Again, making an effort to keep the belly drawn in. Arms are strong, pressing down. Again, we want to avoid just sinking into the belly. A little squeeze. And then back down. That makes you appreciate how impressive male dogs are, because they do that all the time. We'll take the opposite leg out, lift that, and then start to draw that out to the side. So a little squeeze up towards the ceiling, and then bring it back down. Keeping the bend in the knee, swinging it out to the side slowly. Again, trying to keep the heart and the belly button over the center line, so you're actually going to use the shoulders and arms a lot more for balancing and stopping yourself twisting off to the sides, and that eventually is what locks your pelvis into place, and then you get that little movement into the hip. Well, lift again, little squeeze. Barely doing that without making it obvious in my face. And then the last time we're out to the side, and a lift, and bringing that back down. I've done that one for a while. Take a little breath from there. We'll send both legs to the back of the mat into plank. Ooh. And we're going to take a side plank. So I'm going to take the feet over towards my left, and just taking the right hand to the sky. So just do a warm up, really. Get used to the idea of having the hand underneath the shoulder on the bottom arm, and top hand towards the sky, and lifting the hips up as high as I can. Side edge of one foot, sole of the foot on the other. I'll bring the hands back down, and then cross over to the opposite side. So just kind of letting the body imprint a little bit, how this feels. And then I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to take it over to the left side, but this time I'm going to stack the feet one on top of the other. Allow myself to lift. So it feels stronger, a little less supported. I'm going to see if I can keep the top foot flexed, toes towards the knee, and simply lift the foot away about the height of your hip or a little higher. And then we'll carefully bring that foot down. Bring ourselves back into regular plank. Cross over to the right. Take your time to stack and lift the hand. And then when you're ready, flex the foot and lift the leg. Remember to breathe. And then we'll bring the hands down. Ooh. Allow ourselves to stretch back into down dog. We'll take a couple of breaths here. And then bring the knees back down to the floor. I'm going to pivot the feet out to the side and sit down. And then bring the soles of the feet towards me with the knees hanging out to the side. Going to have a little rock from side to side, just to allow the muscles around the sitting bones to kind of find their own natural place to be. I'm going to see if I can take the index finger, middle finger around the big toe. So I'm lifting the toes towards me, but the heels staying on the ground. I'm going to walk the feet back in a little bit more so I can start to lean back in this position. I'm going to try and lift the chest forwards. Although I'm drawing the belly in, I'm actually pressing the pelvis forwards a little bit as well. And then with one foot on the ground, I'm going to take the right leg, in my case, out to the side. And just allow myself to extend out, get used to the balance, and press out through the heels. Draw the top shoulder back a little bit, that chest lifts. Remember what we're doing with the belly can be a bit complicated. So it's belly in, pelvis forwards. And then we'll cross over to the opposite side. Extend out through that leg. So hopefully getting to a straight leg position, or at least in that direction. And then we'll bring both feet down. You've probably guessed that we're going to then see if we can take both feet away down the center line. So turning the thighs in this time. So we'll come more into boat pose. Now we'll use the feet down. I'm going to cross the ankles over. Allow the hands to come forward. Just lift up onto the knees. And as I untangle the legs, move myself back, down dog. Coming up onto the tippy toes, I'm going to walk the feet many inches into the front of the mat. Keeping the legs straight as long as I can, hands flat to the floor until I lift into the safety of the well-known waddling position into the front of the mat. Hands onto the hips, off knees, and let ourselves lift. Put hands high on the breath in, bottom head. Run the belly in towards the spine, hands into the heart, hinge forward, soften the knees, flat backs. Fingertips come to the ground, we fold in, taking the breath, and sending the left foot back into the lunge, up onto the fingertips. I'm going to take a little breath and slowly lift the hands alongside the hips, just lifting the rib off of that front thigh. We'll extend the hands forwards, following the line of the torso, palms facing in. And then on the exhale, we're going to slowly draw the tailbone to the floor, pressing into the front shin and bending the back knee. We'll bring ourselves up into a high crescent. We'll take a breath from there. Bring the hands down to the floor. Drop the back heel in. Bring the hands alongside the body. Swoop the left arm forwards to cartwheel up into warrior two. A breath or two just to relax the shoulders, adjust the feet, press down, belly in, tailbone tucks. And then we'll just simply bring the hands in towards the heart and let them come down to the floor, framing the front foot. Stepping back into down dog. And take a breath. Come forwards into plank, half plank, up dog. Roll it back into down dog. Breath here. Draw the left knee, staying in down dog. Use your exhale then to bring the foot through to lunge. Strong back leg pressing out. We take a breath and push off the toes to that forward bend. Hands onto the hips and we lift up. Bring the hands in towards the heart, up towards the sky. And back in towards the heart. Exhaling down to the floor. Take a breath. Bend your right foot to the back of the mat. Check your front knee is over your ankle. Hands alongside the body, a little lift. We'll extend out. Belly drawn in. Use the exhale to ease your way up into that high crescent. And then we'll bring the hands down to the floor again. Drop the back heel in. Bring the hands alongside the body. We're going to lift into warrior two. Right arm charges forwards to lift up. Hands into the heart. Rotate to the front of the mat and down to the floor. Stepping back into down dog. Come forwards into the plank. Half plank. Up dog. Roll it back into down dog. Breath here. And then draw the right knee in. Exhale your foot through to the front of the mat. And push off the toes. Forward bend. Hands onto the hips. We can lift. Bring the hands in towards your heart. Inhale them to the sky. Back in towards the heart. Exhale it down to the floor. We'll take a breath here. Send the left foot back into the lunge. Going to drop the back knee down to the floor. Sweep the hands alongside the body as the bootlaces run down to the floor. Sweep the hands forwards and lift up. We'll take the hands out wide in line with the shoulders. And then keeping the elbows raised, hands in towards the heart. We inhale, rotate towards our right side. Fold over, elbow to the outside. Put the toe on the back foot. Press away to lift the knee. And then lift the chest a little as well. Bring the hands to the floor. Drop the back heel in. Hands alongside the body. We're lifting into warrior two. Hands into the heart. Down to the floor we go. Stepping back into our down dog. Hands come forwards. Exhale through. Half plank to up dog. Those elbows very much wrapped into the ribs. Back into down dog. Draw that left knee in. Exhale it through to the front of the mat. Breath here. And then push off the toes. Hands onto the hips and we'll lift up. Hands in towards the heart. Inhale them high. Bring them back in towards the heart. As you exhale down to the floor. Take the breath in. Then the right foot back. Allow the back knee to the ground. Untuck the toes, sweep the hands alongside the body. Float them forwards and up. And take the arms out wide. Inhale towards the hands, heart. Rotate on the exhale, take a breath. And then fold over as you exhale. Now tuck the toes on the back foot. Press out through the heel to lift the knee and lift the chest. And hands to the floor. We'll drop the back heel in, lift into warrior two. Right arm comes forward, fully up. Hands into the heart. Down to the floor we go. We'll step back into that down dog. Take a breath into plank. Exhale it forwards into the half. Up dog, forward stretch. Lift the hips high. Breath in at the back. Use your exhale to start drawing your right knee in and then follow through to the front of the mat. Take a breath. We'll press off the toes into that forward bend. Hands onto the hips and we'll lift up. Hands into the heart. Inhale high with the hands. In towards the heart. And exhale down to the floor. We'll take a breath and send the left foot to the back of the mat. Drop the heel in, hands alongside the body. Warrior two, lift. And hands into the heart. We'll come down to the floor. We'll step it back into down dog. And this time we'll come into plank. Side plank. Going to take the right hand high. Bring the hand back down into plank. Take it to the left. Hand lift. We'll come back into plank. Half plank. Up dog. Down dog. Breath in. That left knee comes in as you begin to exhale. Use the rest of the breath to follow through. Take a breath. Push off the back toes. Forward bend. Hands onto the hips and we can lift up. Hands to the heart again. Inhale high. Hands through the heart. And exhale down to the floor. Breath here. And send the right foot back. Allow yourself to drop the heel in. Warrior two for the lift. Right arm comes up. You'll bring the hands into the heart. Rotate down to the floor. We'll step it back into down dog. Come into plank. Side plank, we take the feet left, right arm lifts. Coming back down to the floor. Crossing over to the opposite side. Coming back down to the ground. Use the exhale to come into half, up dog. Keep the shoulders pinned back. Lift up those hips. Breath in, down dog. Use the exhale to bring the right knee in. Finish the breath as the foot comes through. We'll take a little breath from there and allow ourselves to step into the front of the mat. Hands onto the hips, we can lift up. We'll take the hands high, out to the side, and into the smallest of back bends, just lifting the spine up out of the pelvis. And then easing the hands down, letting the chest come back into a neutral plane. So mountain pose, just turning the palms forwards. We'll bring the hands in towards the heart as we open the eyes. Going to exhale down to the floor. Take a breath and step the right foot to the back of the mat. I'm going to drop the heel in, lift into my warrior two pose. And then as I arrive, I'm going to lengthen out over the front thigh to that extended side angle. I'm going to bring the forearm onto the front thigh, even though it could get lower. I'm going to take the top arm up and make some windmills with this top arm. So I'm going to take it towards the front of the mat, keep the chest pointing to the long side, lifting the body out of the way to that forearm, and then just rotating the arm around again. Now this time, I'm going to extend the hand forwards and turn the chest down to the floor. Bring the hands either side of the front foot, spin the back heel, and we'll step towards that forward bend. So bring the hands onto the hips and let ourselves lift up. Inhale the hands high in towards the heart. Exhale down to the floor. Taking the breath. Sending the left foot back and dropping the heel in. Hands alongside the body. We'll lift into our warrior two. Again, as we arrive, we'll take a breath and use the exhale to control the extension out over the front thigh, keeping the knee over the ankle. As the forearm comes in, and just bring the hand towards the groin, we'll slowly extend that top arm up and over towards the front of the mat. rotating round. And again, take the top arm up and rotate that down towards the floor. Both hands either side. This time we'll step back gently into down dog. We'll come into plank and let the knees come down to the floor and sit back onto the heels. And take the flat block. Probably been wondering why we had it all evening. And we're just going to take a nice deep squat. So hands come forwards, lay yourself a little space to tuck the toes underneath, taking the feet already about the same distance apart as you think the block will be, and then rolling the heels onto the corner edges. Now, once you've arrived, you can adjust. Allow yourself to take the feet out a pleasant angle, and let the knees moving in the same direction. So initially, we're trying to get the ankles and the knees to respond to this positioning, but we also want to allow a little bit of time for the muscles between the glutes and the lower back to start stretching out, which they will if we stay here for a moment. So for the moment, you can either keep your fingertips on the floor or you can bring your arms on top of your knees and kind of just allow yourself to come into the most upright position you can, just to make it easier to breathe and relax the shoulders. And now I'm going to deliberately take the hands forwards and allow the chin to drop in towards the chest. Walk the fingers forward so the spine starts to round as much as I can let it. Just allow the fingers to be out as far forward as I can without really shifting the weight. I'm trying to let the spine stretch its way out. And then just walking the hands back in. So in my body, I kind of feel that more in the muscles in the mid-back area, running down the sides of the spine. I'm going to take the hands now whilst they're on the inside of these thighs, a little wider out to the side. So I can start to use the strength of my arms to open the groins out a little wider, just trying to walk the fingers back as far as I can and keep the chest lifted a little bit. Shoulders drawn back just a fraction. And we're almost there. Now, I'm going to take the hands carefully behind so that we can just sit our bottoms down onto the block, which hopefully isn't too big a distance. And as you untangle your legs, the blood flow returns to the knees, but also the release in the hip flexors as well as you sit up tall. We'll take the left foot underneath out towards the right side, and we'll bring the right foot across. Going to lift up nice and tall, just tilting the pelvis forwards and draw the left arm up and cross over towards the right. So I can use the front arm and leg, just ease the body around a little bit, looking towards that rear shoulder. Trying to keep both sitting bones attached to the floor. And then we'll untangle to the opposite side. Again, just that little tilt forwards. And rotate around. Try and relax the bottom leg if you can. And we'll release from there. We'll ease our way down to the floor. I'm going to move the block out to the side and bringing my feet closer towards the front end of the mat. So as I lean back, I've got plenty of room for my head to be on the mat, and I can take a little wriggle out through the hips to ease the spine down to the floor. So just taking a moment to kind of wriggle the shoulders, the hips out, and let gravity take its effect on the spine to sink it down towards the floor. You're going to have the feet kind of preempting where we're going to be moving to, which is bridge pose. So they're now moved out to just a little wider than the hips, toes turned in, heels turned out. I'm going to let the hands come down to the floor right by the side of my body as close in as I can, reaching my fingers down towards my heels, which in my body I can sometimes actually reach the back of the heel, but I appreciate some people have got shorter arms. You take a little breath and start to press the back of your arms downwards into the floor with the shoulder blades as well. And then I'm going to bend the elbows and make some little robot arms. So now my palms are facing in with my fingers pointing towards the sky. And I'm trying to press my lower back and the middle back into the floor and draw the belly down. I can tuck the tailbone away from the ground, so now the lower back is into the ground, and start to lift the hips up towards the sky very gently and pressing into the legs. And allow myself to lift up. And just keeping that little bit of effort, pressing down through the arms. The elbows are still only as wide apart as the shoulders. So I'm trying to get pretty much every muscle along the back surface to engage. So that is the entirety of my legs, the calves from my heels, through the knees, through the hamstrings. I want both buttocks to be feeling like they're equally working and engaged. The lower back muscles, mid, shoulders, pressing down through the back of the arms. Now there are some corresponding muscles working on the top surface, but I'm trying to isolate my awareness to the back of my body a little bit. And then finally, let all that tension go and just release all the air out of your body as it sinks back down to the floor very gradually. letting the hands come by the side of your body. I'm going to wiggle the feet very close in towards my bottom on the center line, knees high, and slowly draw the left knee in towards the body, and just draw that knee towards me. Just a little bit with the arms, just very gradually increasing the workload. Is light all the way through, but obviously increases just a little bit, and seeing where that leg can now go to. And I release that to the floor. And I'll take the opposite side in. And ease that foot to the ground. I'm allowing the arms to come out wide in line with the shoulders, and sinking the legs gently over towards the right side. I'm going to try and get the bottom leg down to the floor whilst the shoulders are on the ground. Now, if that is accessible to you, you can take this one step further. Otherwise, just stay in this position and just let the legs sink. So the extra step is to start to take the foot of the top leg and extend that out towards the side. Now, ideally, you want your big toe touching the ground. You can actually use your right hand on top of that left thigh to help ease it in just a little bit. So kind of self-adjustment, very gently applied. Now ease that foot back. If you head out to the side, let the knees come back up. If you do need to realign the spine, just a small change and bringing the feet back in if they moved out a little bit, and easing the legs over to the opposite side. Again, just being governed by if your bottom leg can reach the ground, you can then extend the top foot out to the side. I'm going to run out of size space here. The big toe touching the ground. Both shoulders from the ground. And bring the leg back in. Allow yourself to lift very gently back up. Now I'm going to move the block around underneath the back of the head, but it's primarily so that I can see the clock more easily. My preference, if I wasn't watching the clock, would be to have my head flat on the ground. Your choice. Again, see how your spine feels. If you need to leave the knees high, take the feet wide, let them sink in towards the knees to the center, so a little TP. Otherwise, more traditional Shavasana, flat on the floor, with the feet wide, rocking the legs open, palms facing up, a little wriggle through the shoulders, a little wriggle through the hips, so let the spine sink. And then really your choice of sensation is going to be either sinking into the mat as you let every muscle go, or floating above the mat, whatever works for you in terms of giving you the best sense of stillness. We gently start to stretch those fingers and toes. Become a little more aware of the body. We breathe a little deeper. And use the exhales to stretch out in any way that feels good. Even the legs, laying flat to the ground, we'll slide the heels along the floor towards us. Very gently let both knees come in towards the body. Take the hands very lightly around the shins and just let myself rock a little bit from side to side. So it's a very nurturing sense of holding the position. And then I'm going to let my roll over to the right side take place, keeping the knees in and the chest a little to the side. So the hands press away from the floor to lift up smoothly. And sitting back in that upright posture. Bring the hands in towards the heart. As we close the eyes, take a long breath in. Begin to slowly let the chin drop. And finding the belly drawn to the spine, simply bow to the floor to seal the practice for the evening. As the breath comes back into the body, building the spine up, let the head lift and the eyes open. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Hope to see you on the mat again soon.